Hello my loves, welcome back to the channel. Today we're making this beautiful dress. This is what the back looks like. So first off, we're going to fold our fabric into two. This particular dress has three layers. The first part is the upper bodice, the second part is the flare, and the third part is the gathered part of it. So for now, we're making the upper bodice. So I'm going to start by reading out my starting point. From there, I'm going to mark my vertical measurement. So this is my chest line, which is 9 inches, and my half length, which is 16 inches. I'm going to add half inch to that, and I'll make that 16 and half. So I'll make a mark out. I'll really line across this point. Now for folding your fabric, you need to have your bigger circumference divided by 4 plus at least 2 inches seam allowance. So the bigger circumference for this upper bodice is the bust. So we are folding the bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches. On the shoulder area, I'm marking the shoulder divided by 2. I'm marking the same thing on the chest line, basically drafting a basic bodice. So I'll connect from the shoulder to the chest line. Then, because if you look closely, the style is a turtleneck design. So I'm making the neck width 2.5 by 2.5. The neck width 2.5, the neck depth 2.5. So I'm just going to connect like so. Then I'll do my 1 inch shoulder slope. Now, if you don't want yours to have a turtleneck, just go ahead and do your preferred neckline. But if you want to do a turtleneck, just do 2.5 by 2.5. You would have the opportunity to retrim if it is small, but it's better that it's better small than big. Now, on the chest line, I marked the bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance. Then I marked half of my armhole line, then connected like this. So this is how I got my armhole. Now on the half length, I'm going to mark the waist measurement divided by 4 plus 3 inches. The extra 1 inch is for your dart allowance. So you connect from the bust to the waist, and there you have it for the upper bodice. So after cutting, you're going to fold your fabric again for the back, then add your zip allowance. For this one, I'm adding 1.5 inches for my zip allowance. So place the already cut out back on it, mark out your zip allowance 1.5 inches across the length of the front fabric like so. Then roll it out. Now for the back, the neck width I'm using is the same as that of the front. The neck width is 2.5, but the depth would be half inch. Okay, neck depth half inch, neck width 2.5. Remember that I'm making a turtleneck. So go ahead and mark out your neck depth, then connect it to the neck width. Remember, half inch neck depth. Afterwards, you go ahead and cut out. Alright, so after cutting, we'll set this aside. You can also go ahead and mark out your dart point. Make sure you notch out your zipper allowance up and down. Then you can go ahead and open up your zipper area, basically making the basic bodice. If you already know how to make a basic bodice, you can skip watching this part till we get to the other part. Now I'm marking my bust span divided by 2 plus half inch. Our bust span is 8, so divided by 2 gives me 4 plus half inch, that's 4.5. So I'm marking 4.5 here for my dart. I'll mark the same thing on the front. Basically just mark 4.5 and give it a notch. So this is where you sew in your dart. Now for the lower part, which is the flare part, you can choose to make this in form of a bias. You can make the flare in form of a bias, but I'm working with less than 3 yards of fabric. So what I'm going to do is to get the hip measurement, divide that by 4, add 5 inches to it. Okay, so that's what I'm using to fold. The hip measurement divided by 4 plus 5 inches, that's all. So if the hip is 40, 40 divided by 4 gives us 10 plus 5 inches, so we're going to fold 15. Now marking from the half length to below the hip line. Okay, from the half length to below the hip. So after the hip, that's where you're going to take the measurement. Mine is 30 inches. From shoulder to below knee is 30 inches. So I have placed my tape at 17 at the upper part, at my starting point at 17, because 17 is a half length. So I kept 17 at the starting point, then marked out 30 inches plus half inch for joining this flare part to the gathered part. Now I'm going to mark at this upper part. I'm going to mark the waist divided by 4 plus 2 inches, and I'm not adding any darts to this because we're not sewing that on this flare area. Like I said, you can fold your fabric in form of a bias to make the flare. Now here I'm marking the hip divided by 4 plus 2 inches, then extra 3 inches. That's the 5 inches I said you should add. 2 inches seam allowance and 3 inches for the flare. Alright, so basically, and this will just give you the flare that you need. Now here I'm going to curve it up like so, because you can see on the style that it has a curved part at that area. So, and I stepped up by 2 inches for me to do this curve. Afterwards, you're going to go ahead and cut out. So now after cutting out, for the back, you are still going to fold the fabric into 2. Remember we folded 15, for example, 15 for the front. You're going to now fold 15 and half, 15, 17, depending on the allowance you want to add for your zipper. Now I've gone ahead to cut lining for this part. You can see, so this is the back with the lining, and this is the flare side with lining as well. Remember, fold your fabric into 2, place your zip allowance. For the front, I place 1.5. For the upper part, sorry, I place 1.5. So it's the same 1.5 that you use for the flare part. So make sure that you cut lining for all your pieces. Then we'll start coupling. Now I'm going to place the lining like so, because the back still has some designs at the back. Okay, so I'm placing the fabric and the lining together because I need to cut the design it has at the back. Alright, so after placing it, make sure that every part aligns, every part matches, okay, so that when you're done cutting, you don't have discrepancies around this area. Now, from the neck depth, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. I'll come down by 1.5 inches. Then slowly make an inward curve. Afterwards, come down by 4 inches. Okay, they make a curve from the 1.5 inches to the 4 inches. Just make a curve inside. At this point, please, less is more, because if you do wider than this, by the time you cut out and turn, you're going to have a wide hole. So at this point, less is more. All right, come down by 1.5 inches. From there, mark 4 inches downwards and just make a curve like you're writing a D. You're writing letter D. Now I'm going to measure this again so that you can see. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Just a very small curve, okay? Go ahead and cut out like so, and that would be it for it. Now the design I'm working with has frills, or like something like peplum frills at the back side, but because I'm working with limited fabric, I'm not going to do that. But if you want, you're going to measure the circumference of this curve that you have made, times that by 3, and use that to make your frills. Okay, now for the front, this is both the fabric and the lining. If you look at the design properly, you see that it has slits in front. So I'm going to still come down by 4 inches from the neck depth. I'm still going to come down by 4 inches. Then I'm going to slash it open to that 4 inches. Okay. Then I'll repeat the same thing for the lining as well. And you're going to open this up, right sides of the fabric facing the right sides of your lining, and you're going to go ahead and sew. First of all, you're going to sew in the slits. So you're going to make sure that you match up the slit, that you sew 1/2 inch like so. Afterwards, you go and turn the sides of your lining, then turn it to the right size and fold in your darts. Please do not turn the neckline with lining, okay? You're just going to only sew in the slits. Now for the back, you're still going to do the same thing. Repeat the same procedure. Let the right side of the lining face the right side of the fabric. Then you're not going to cut out your zipper allowance at the upper part. By the time we are done, I'm going to show you what to do to that area. Please do not cut this part out yet. By the time we get deeper into this tutorial, I'm going to show you when to cut it out, okay? So let the right sides of your fabric face the right sides of your lining, and you're going to sew it round with 1/2 inch. Now, if you're attaching your frills, you need to attach the frills to the fabric first before you then turn with the lining, so that it will have a very clean finish. Then you also go ahead and sew up the sides, turn to the right side and sew in your darts. Please do not also turn the neckline with lining at this point. Repeat the same thing to the other side, okay, and make sure that you give it a notch and a good press when you're done. Now I'm done doing all of those things, and I've even joined the flare part to the upper part, so you can see what this looks like. Please ignore the hand there, okay? All right, so this is what we've done so far. You can see. All right, then you can see what our curve looks like. So at this point now, we can now talk about what to do to the upper part of your curve or at the neck area anyways. All right, so this is what we have. You can see that shape, that opening that we made. If you had made your frills, it would have still come out really beautiful. All right, so you can make yours with frills anyway. That's your choice. Now at this part, like I said, you're then going to flip it like so. You can see the way I've done. Then remember I notched out my zip allowance. So you're going to stitch on the zip allowance from top to the lower side. The same thing for the other side. Flip it together like this. Then sew from the zip allowance down. Okay, just stitch directly on the zip allowance. So when you're done stitching, you can now trim out the excess. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go and do what I've just told you. Okay, then fixing my zipper, make sure I give everything a good press. Now for the front, this is what we have. Okay, I've also sewn the slits. You can see I've also sewn my darts. You can see my darts, and I did not turn the neckline with lining. You can see that. So you can see that what we're doing is progressing. Right, now I'll go ahead and attach my zipper to the back. You can see the zipper. Then I'll go ahead and also join the shoulder area. I've joined the shoulder. I've also overlocked the shoulder seam. Now I'll start taking my body measurements. So on the chest line, I'll measure the bust divided by 2. I'll make a mark at that point, then measure what I have from there to the rest of the material. Whatever you have, share it on equally on the two sides. Now the same thing for the waist. Divide the waist measurement by 2. Whatever you have, measure it from one side of the dress to where you have that measurement. Make a mark at that point. Then measure from there to what you have left. Whatever you have, share it into 2 and mark it on the two sides. You can see that. Do the same here. Right, so you're going to connect from bust to waist. Like so. Guys, if you're still watching till now, please like this video, share with your friends, give me a like, and please turn on your post notifications. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. I love you. All right, so at this area, I'm just going to mark in 1/2 inch. Okay, ignore what I'm doing here. At the end of the day, I still flared it out with 1/2 inch because I realized I wanted the flare to be more than what it was initially. All right, so I'll just flare it out the lower side with 1/2 inch. Here I'm doing 1 inch, but later I had to reduce it to 1.5 inch just to give me a bit more flare. Alright, I didn't really like that the flare was not too much because I didn't cut on bias. But if you had cut this on bias, you would have had a very beautiful flare. I'm working with less than 3 yards here, so cut me some slack. Alright, so when I'm done joining, this is what we have. Okay, I've gone ahead to join the seam lines. This is what we have. Now for the lower part, you can see I had to maintain 1/2 inch at this lower part. You can see the same thing to this area. Now what you do next is to measure around this flare, the lower part of the flare. Measure around it, whatever you have, multiply that by 3. That would give you the length or the width of the fabric you're going to use for the gathered part. Alright, so that's what's left for now. So make sure you open properly, give it a good press, measure it round, and gather your fabric. Right, so I have my gathered fabric here. You can see I've already gathered that. Talk about being proactive. All right, so the length of this is the full length of your dress minus your shoulder to your below knee measurement. Okay, so you can see I used my gathers foot to make these pleats, these gathers, because I don't want the gather. I wanted the gathers to be really scanty because that's what we have on the design. So you can make use of your needle and thread. You can make use of your sewing machine. You can use your gathers foot if you have one. It makes the job really easy. Then when you're done gathering, just go ahead and attach the gathered area to the flare. And that's it, guys. The next step is not it, girl. That's just not it. Attach your sleeves if you have your basic sleeve. I have a tutorial on how to cut a basic sleeve, so I'll drop that in the description box. So fixing your basic sleeve, and we'll move to the neckline. So I'm going to measure what I have at the neckline. Remember, we have a slit in between the front, so we need to measure on the two sides. So I'll measure here. I'll also go ahead and measure the other side. So right round from one side of the front neck all the way to the back. You can see that. Okay, so whatever you have, if it corresponds with your round neck measurement, then you're on track. Okay, so my round neck measurement is 16, and when I measured each side, I got 7. So 7 plus 7 is 14. So I need to trim it a little bit to give me my actual neck width, okay, or neck circumference that I measured on my client. So I'm going to trim out 1/8 of an inch, very small. You can see, I need to zoom this area. So you can see I'm trimming out 1/8 of an inch, very small, really small, because at this place, okay, at this point, less is really more. Because if you trim more than what you should, you're going to have a gaping neckline. It wouldn't be a turtleneck anymore. So you can see it's not even up to 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. I'm just using the tip of my scissors to just cut out. Okay, you can see what I'm doing slowly so that the devil doesn't push your hands. All right, now that I've done that, I'll now go ahead and measure it again. Remember, initially I got 7, now I have 8, and my round neck is 16. So 8 plus 8 is 16. So it gives me my actual round neck. And by the time because I measured this snugly on the person, so by the time I now stitch it down, I'm going to have enough room for the client so that the person will not choke, literally. Right, so for the turtleneck, I'm going to fold my fabric on bias like I'm cutting a flare. Okay, because it's a turtleneck collar, you need to cut it on bias so that it frees up the neckline. It doesn't choke. When they say it choke, and you will be there literally choking, so that it doesn't choke you. Now from the top, I'm going to measure 15 inches, and I'm going to measure it round, just like we're cutting a flare. You know the way we rotate our tape when you're cutting a flare. So just be rotating your tape round. Then you go ahead and connect that area like so. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out the width of my collar plus 1 inch. So I want my collar to be 1.5 inches plus 1 inch, that's 2.5. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 2.5 round like so. Okay, so mark it all around like this. Connect it together. Now at the lower part, you're now going to measure your neck width, whatever you got for measuring out the neck. I got 8 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to mark 8 inches plus ½ inch for seam allowance, that's 8.5. Okay, so I'm going to make a mark at my 8.5. And if you try to measure the same thing at the upper part, it's not going to give you that because the upper neck is slimmer. Okay, so it's not going to give you that. So what you do is to just connect it up straight. Okay, like I said, the upper neck is slimmer than the base of the neck. Okay, so just measure what you have for your round neck and remember to add your ½ inch seam allowance for sewing your neckline or your turtleneck collar. So here I'm going to add this is my collar. I'm going to remeasure before I put scissors here. I'm going to remeasure to see that I have my 8 inches. You can watch to see that I am doing that. You can see I have my 8 inches. Then I'm going to add my ½ inch for sewing the neckline. So I'm just going to cut it up straight. So here I've also cut it out on my lace. I'm using lace for this. Then I'm lining it with the Ankara that I'm working with. Okay, then the lining. So it's easier to cut this with your lining, so that way you don't waste your fabric. So when you cut on lining, you can now place on your fabric and cut out. I've also made out my loop for the turtleneck. So I'm just going to place it like this before I then place my lining on top of it. Then sew from the side to the upper part, round the width of the neckline to the other side. So I'm stitching with ½ inch basically. Remember I added ½ inch when we were cutting the collar, so I'm going to use ½ inch to sew it together as well. Okay, I'm trying to pin this down, but this pin is forming rock off edges for me. Anyways, I'm just going to flip it like this. You can see this is how to attach your loop. Yeah, then I'll use my fingers to hold it down, then place my lining. Then I'm going to stitch it like so. Look at the way I'm going to show you. ½ inch from here half inch all around here and downwards. You're not going to touch the lower parts. When you're done, go ahead and notch it all around and give it a very good press. Now this is my dearly beloved color, looking like 10 out of 10, looking like it's ready for mission. All right, so this is what it looks like. By the time you sew it, it's just going to balance on your neckline and not choke the living daylight out of you. I've sewn my collar, and I also made sure I was eating biscuits to keep body and soul together. We cannot come and kill ourselves now. All right, so when you're done, look at that iron. I'm going to steam press the living daylight out of this dress. All the while I've been sewing, I wasn't ironing because has been showing me shaggy and fuel is not cheap. So what I do is to finish sewing, then I turn on the generator and start ironing. So all of these places, all of these things, I'm going to press, like literally press the living daylight out of it. When you see this dress next, you're not gonna recognize it. So this is what we have. Very beautiful. You can see. Look at that beauty. So please keep on eating your biscuits, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. I hope you loved this. It is really beautiful. You can see our slits, our turtleneck collar, the flare, the gathered part, everything is on point. So I'll see you in my next one. Stay blessed. Bye.